There's two weapons in Elden Ring that are extremely similar, but like twins, have specific differences. I'm talking about the Nox Flowing Sword and the Nox Flowing Hammer. They both have the same Ash of War name, but they behave differently when used. Both of the weapons turn into liquid when you use the Ash of War, I guess, according to their lore. The sword does a single sweep attack, while the hammer does a double strike. However, I'm only going to be beating the game using the hammer Ash of War, because like most twins, one of them gets more attention than the other, so we have to stay true to history. The only problem with that is that it's located all the way in Nokrin, and if you have ever done your research, or your time in a federal prison for treason, you would know that means you have to beat Radahn in order to get there. But we're a little bit different in the head, so I'm going to go about this in a completely different way. But before that, since the Hammer Ash of War is like a little ballerina twirl or something, I'm going to make my character look like my favorite anime character that I see everywhere I go. So since we aren't going to beat Radahn to get to Nokrin, we need a different method. Luckily though, we can teleport there using a wrong warp. A wrong warp is basically us telling the game that we're in charge, and we decide where we want to teleport to. It requires us to go to specific areas and force quitting the game while we load in order to appear somewhere else when we load back in. It's not at all confusing, and to prove that, there's this map that makes complete sense even for the most casual of players. According to my research, there are two methods to do this, and one of them is to jump off the cliff in Seofor River and force quit at the correct time, which in turn should make me spawn directly outside of the Mimic Tier fight. So I go ahead and jump off of the cliff, and I wait, and it did not work. So instead of dying over and over again, I go to the 4 belfries instead, in order to get to an isolated area in Nokrin that's only purpose is to give a talisman that I have never once in my entire life ever thought about using. This spot requires us to teleport to a site of grace, and if we mess it up, we end up right back here to try again, so it's much faster to try again. We teleport to the Castle Ward Tunnel site of grace because of reasons, quit out of the game, and it didn't work again. So I try again, teleporting to the Round Table Hold this time instead, and quitting out the game, and what the fuck, where am I? I try again one more time, and this time it works, and I end up right outside of the Mimic Tier fight. Of course, I take off all of my equipment because the Mimic Tier is doing a no weapon run, and I have yet to actually start my run due to technicalities, so I turn this man into minced meat real quick. And it turns out he is the one with the skill issue. The weapon is located about halfway down this walkway in Nokrin, but I can't measure to save my life and I take a wrong turn. So by process of elimination, I find the right window to jump through, run past the filling for my cavities, and then I pick up the weapon to start my rampage. I pick up stone number 1, stone number 2, and finally stone number 3 so I can go fight Margit. And I instantly realized that this was going to be a rough run because I'm stuck in this stupid ass animation whenever I attack. I also get hyper armor when I do it, so unless I get hit by a massive attack, the bosses could just farm damage off of me. So I immediately needed to start thinking about what I needed in order to make this run much easier. And since I have my own made up rules that I can't break without getting castrated, I had to think of ways to survive. This meant I needed ways to survive multiple hits without spamming points into vigor, using consumables, or using any spells/incantations, because obviously that wouldn't be beating the game using only the Ash of War, now would it? Since Margit doesn't hit very hard, I got lucky with beating him by just using the Ash of War whenever he attacked and praying that I would outdamage him before he beat me. So I just keep attacking until, believe it or not, he died. So the first thing after Margit I needed to do in order to make this run work out better was to get abducted by a virgin and taken to a maximum security prison where I break out in about 5 seconds by jumping off the cliff. The reason I'm here is because I need to get some more health in order to take more hits, and in Volcano Manor there's an HP increase talisman waiting for me. And every time I level up my health, this talisman will get slightly better. And like my uncle who passed away from an overdose, you can never have enough. I also pick up stone number 5 because I don't know how to count and I forgot number 4. And then I go farm some armor from these guys because the armor they drop has high physical resistance, it's easy to get, and it's pretty light for how good it actually is early on. So I had to keep beating these two, resting at the site of grace, taking a mental break when I didn't get the drop I wanted, and repeating the process until they dropped the armor. Mostly because I needed good armor to try and reduce as much damage as I possibly could, since I will be getting hit a lot. and I couldn't get the pants to drop, so this will have to do.
I put the new 40s on the G. I come into bloody boxes on the knee. Cause all my niggas got it out the streets. I keep 100 racks inside my G. I remember leading them all with the whole team.
After the armor, I looked for more talismans, and I decided to try out a talisman that would increase my physical resistance by 50% when my health is low. Which means I have to beat a Frankenstein baby-faced monster that is absolutely terrifying, if I may add. And the entire time I was fat rolling because I was like 0.5 over the legal limit, but I'm pretty sure I'm safe to drive. So I cannot time the dodges at all, which makes me get hit constantly and...
What the dog doing?
Now that I have both my talismans filled, I can go to Godric and test them out. The HP one obviously helps, but I wasn't too sure about the defense increase. Mostly because when I got to Godric, I had 833 health. The defense talisman requires me to have 20% health remaining to activate, which means I would need to have about 166 health for it to activate. Which is really bad because sure, if I was at 166 health, then I would be able to tank an attack and it would work out perfectly and my family would love me again. But if I was at 167 health, the same attack I survived would probably kill me. You see the problem here? It's super situational, and honestly, half the time you will never even see it activate. And guess what? It didn't activate even once during the entire Godric fight. Of course, I will keep it on, because in the off chance that it actually does do something and save me, I will have to regard it as the best talisman in the game. It also will hopefully get better as I get more health and defense, but we'll see. But thankfully the armor I had was enough to get me enough defense that I could beat Godric. Which means I quickly moved to Red Wolf and twirl my hammer around all scary-like, while he jumps around like a maniac. All of Red Wolf's attacks are considered heavy, so they stagger me out of the attack whenever he hits, which is just unfortunate. But not as unfortunate as the Renala fight, because this actually made me happy and excited. Once I bonked Renala on the noggin one time, I knew I could beat Malenia. That probably makes no sense, but let me explain. Renala's body language is like the exact same as Malenia, which means if you can knock down Renala with an attack, it means Malenia will also get knocked down as well. And since every time I hit Renala, she faceplants into her water puddle, Malenia will do the same thing. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, then please contact a lawyer and sue me for defamation, because if you don't understand it, then I'm calling you a silly little duckling for the rest of your life. Which made Renala really easy because of this. At least, that's what I should say, because in theory, it should be a walk in the park, but I wanted to beat her so bad without her ever even getting up from the ground. So every time I tried to stun lock her with the attack, she would jump back and cast magic, instantly killing me, and I took way too long to realize that. So please don't make fun of me, I get upset very easily, and I will report you to the cartel if you do. But eventually I just gave up on my dreams like most people, and just took my time to beat her. And on my way through the scenic route to Atlas Plateau, I could not get up this ladder past these fuckers. And I ended up getting poisoned with no healing left, so it was a race against time to get to the site of grace up top. And I think I actually could have made it there in time if it wasn't for these two shitlord little birds coming out of nowhere and just ruining my day. But once I got past the bird ladies and got to the top, I find my 3rd grade class pet that I lost a long time ago, but he has apparently been eating pretty well because he is a lot larger than I remember. The fire he spews is pretty much the same, but the size of him is completely new to me. There's a couple things in the Atlas Plateau that I need. The first thing I'm gonna get is a crystal tear that increases my maximum health, so I can hopefully take more hits before I die. It will go along perfectly with both the talismans I have. But I had to end the fight with the pet lizard, which means I sat near his legs to try and lasso them together and hog tie him, but I think I was a little too aggressive because he passed away and went to the great animal kingdom in the sky, or whatever story they tell 3rd graders nowadays. And once I get into the Atlas Plateau, I have to beat a boss literally named Wormface in order to get the crystal tear, but I was not strong enough to beat him, and instead I experimented with multiple kinks in the process. First, I got anally probed. And then I got eaten alive, also known as Vord, so even though I didn't get the tier, I got some pretty good alternatives instead if I do say so myself. But since I couldn't beat Wormface to get the crystal tier, I instead went to get the physical defense reduction talisman since I'm here. And since I needed my 3rd talisman, I figured this would help me a bunch in the long run by just stacking my defense as high as I possibly could at all times. And my plan worked out perfectly because when I fought Radon, I knew I was going to get slammed. But the slam turned into a light suplex, because I was able to take like 5 hits before I died, whereas normally I would die in 2, which was quite nice. I mostly waited for him to do his long wind-up attack that hits everything except for the thing right below it, but even if I didn't, I wasn't too worried since I didn't take too much damage when I did get hit. A lot of the times after I attacked, he would just run circles around me to try to make me dizzy instead of hitting me, which would normally work, but it didn't this time. Now, if you'll excuse me, I just feel a little bit sick at the moment and I need to sit down. I went back to Warmface for my Revengeance, now that I'm a little bit stronger after Radon. And now, since I had my physical resistance talisman, I typically didn't have a problem with him, but this time I had to watch out for his puke. Since it's basically the curse mechanic from Dark Souls 3, and since I'm forced to stay in place during my attack, I had to just stand in it and build up the bar way too often. So I had to back up every once in a while and wait, just to make sure I didn't instantly die. However, before I beat him and never saw him again, he got the last laugh by probing me one more time. After I recovered from my more explicit experiences, I went to get the other crystal tier that I had planned to use, and I wanted the Oppenheimer tier for even more damage reduction. But it turns out that I truly am illiterate, because when I read where the crystal tier was, I clearly saw that it was located in northeastern Caelid, but I decided to go to the northwestern Erdtree in Caelid, and well, I didn't get the tier I was actually looking for, imagine that. And then as a result, when I went to try and beat the right avatar, I couldn't, so we'll just have to wait until later. So I might as well continue the run and get access to Lindell, because there's some stuff in there that I need as well. Which means I have to beat the Tree Sentinel, and lucky for me, every time I hit him with the Ash of War, he gets knocked back. I honestly don't understand why, but as long as I'm able to get the second attack out before he attacks, he can't hit me. So I waited for him to do the lunge attack, and then attack before he could follow up with another attack. However, sometimes he would instantly hit me after that, so every time I tried this, I was gambling. I was also able to hit him after he shot a fireball out of his horse, because that's a thing that horses do, and horses also die, so that happens as well. And inside of Lindell, there's a talisman that increases my defense by 30% when my health is at max. My goal and plan for this is that when I get hit for the first time, I won't take much damage at all, and hopefully it will make my other talismans work out more harmonically. Now that's a pretty fancy word for someone with such a small brain now, isn't it? And Godfrey is a perfect example of everything working out perfectly, because I don't even blink an eye when he hits me at this point. So even if I do mess up, it doesn't even bother me in the slightest. Okay, well, maybe it bothers me just a little bit considering how I have to heal during the fight, but for the most part I don't have to actually worry about dodging during the fight. And I can finally equip all of my talismans I prepared all at once, which includes the red circle, the escutcheon square, the gold oval, and the blue multi-pronged object. And then I go straight to Morgott, who just absolutely stands no chance against the power of the wacky, windy, insemination tuberculosis man. Because I go into his fight doing all sorts of twirls and tumbles, while he constantly hits me. But guess what? I don't care, because giant yellow hammers and swords may break my bones, and I can take that. But the stinky ass diarrhea that he spews in the second phase is where I draw the fucking line. And that makes me real mad when he does it. So at this point, he's asked for whatever beating I'm handing to him with this hammer. And it's a pretty severe beating. One of those beatings where even if you weren't the one getting beaten, one wrong look meant you were next. And as a result of this beating, I was able to go back to the Putrid Avatar and fight him in order to get the tier to decrease my damage taken. And he was so bad that I was able to spin in a circle and he died instantly. Amazing. I skipped Nile because I honestly just didn't want to fight him, so instead I used my backup teleporter in my pocket to get here and fight Loretta. And this fight was a little bit of a problem because Loretta's main damage is obviously magic, so my physical resistance talisman was somewhat useless unless I made sure to go up near Loretta and call her old, which made her try and hit me with her spear instead of cast magic, because otherwise if I attacked while she started casting her magic, I had no choice but to open my mouth and take it all in. But I'm just a little guy, and I can't handle it all at once. But Loretta has the same thing as the Tree Sentinel, where if I hit her with the second attack of the Ash of War, she gets interrupted, and I can escape from her before she really gets me. And as a result, I'm able to get the bigger shield talisman. It helped a little, I think, needs more testing. So at this point, I had the choice between Melania or the Fire Giant. I tried Melania and fought her like twice, but I didn't feel like doing it at the moment, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I died because she did the one attack I have to watch out for. But then I went to fight the Fire Giant and I came to the same conclusion as Melania. They both suck and are cheaters, and then I remembered I could go try Moog, so I went to do that instead. When I got to Moog, I soon quickly realized this fight was actually impossible at the moment. I didn't have enough damage, brain cells, or Pokemon cards to even come close to beating him. mostly because whenever I tried to attack, I had to get hit no matter what I did, unless I got lucky and Mohg's controller disconnected for 3 seconds after every attack. And even then, with my damage reduction, I still got destroyed. So at this point, I was lost. I don't like farming for levels, and I couldn't think of any major bosses I could go try and beat. I didn't want to fight small name bosses because I'm prejudiced against them, plain and simple. But then I remembered a long lost boss that I haven't seen in a long time. The Crystal Anal Bead. Now Astel is definitely a boss I can beat right now, especially since the attack where he does a barrel roll is complete dog shit. It's meant to close the distance, but he does it even if you're right next to him. So he misses you without even having to do anything. And he does that attack way more than he ever should even attempt for someone of his age. And I can tell he's old because look at him. He's balding so much, it's cracking his skull open. He's lost so much hair that there's no more hair to lose, and instead he's losing his entire forehead. His hairline is so far back into his skull that it allows me to directly hit his brain with my hammer. So nice job, natural selection. Another baldy off the streets. Fire Giant is only slightly balding, so the hammer is less effective, but it's still effective enough to literally break off a part of his ankle like a crumbling cookie. And it was pretty easy to just wait for him to lift his leg like he's about to fart, but nothing comes out and he looks so embarrassed. It took a little bit to make it into the second phase, but once I hit second phase, I fell asleep out of boredom, because I could only hit him when he put his hands on the ground and tickle him with the damage I was doing. The second phase took about 7 minutes to get through, because sometimes Fire Giant would just refuse to do the attacks I needed because he has a personal vendetta against me. And then Melina tells me that the IRS are after her, and the Fire Giant was a collector. I say, haha, yeah, sure lady, hold my hand, it'll be funny. And then I put her ass on fire because I was actually a sleeper IRS agent in disguise. Her older goth version of herself fights me, and like I said at Renala, Melania has the same exact problem because she is crippled and she cannot stand up straight for more than 5 seconds. But I have a severe problem with cripples, so she's going to get the beatdown of her life. And as long as I waited until she slow walked towards me, I was able to hit her before she did anything. If I didn't wait, however, I found out that she faked her injuries for attention and she instantly jumped me. But that didn't stop me because she got put on the ground right after, no matter what she did. And surprisingly, Melania wasn't that hard. In fact, I dare say she was easy, in more ways than one. But this was the hardest fight I have ever had to deal with in all of my runs. Whenever I attacked, I had to try and use the pillars to block them off and hit them through it, because I did not have enough health to deal with the amount of hits I was taking. The simple solution would be to increase my health, but one of my made up rules that serves no purpose other than to make my life difficult is that I don't level vigor past 40. Okay, so just use a defensive spell or incantation. No can do, bucko. Well, just put them to sleep with sleep pots, right? No, because that doesn't sound like using only the Ash of War, now does it? So I had to figure out a way to beat them using only this garbage ass Ash of War, and after many tries I came to the realization and accepted the fact that this low health defense talisman is not helping me at all. So I went to get a new talisman to replace it, because what I was using and trying was not working out. So I go to this chest that misses me with the gas, but I have short-term memory loss, so I go to this chest that doesn't miss me with the gas, and get teleported to this sleeping giant because he has a talisman that will slowly restore my health, so hopefully that will help. It didn't help at all. Well, it kind of helped, but not good enough. So now I had to think of a different plan, and this plan requires me to do something that I am strictly against. Something that I am absolutely ashamed of having to do. I picked up the Erd Tree Talisman and did the unspeakable cardinal sin. I put on pants. I also talked to this guy for reasons I'll explain later. And you know what happened after I put on pants for the first time in the run? I choked the fucking fight on the last hit. I literally knew he was going to do an aerial jump attack because he has done it every single time I've tried. But I still went for the attack, and then I died, and then I cried, and I'm still not okay. But after many attempts, many baths, and many close calls with toasters in my baths, I finally succeeded, and was able to actually move on with my life and continue playing the game. But to be honest, my excitement for this weapon has gone to the negatives, and every time I swing it now, I just get more depressed. So instead, I go and talk to Alexander to try and cheer myself up, and in the conversation, I tell him about this place called Lava Hot Springs. Then I find out that he took the term Lava Hot Springs a little bit too serious, and I try to tell him that it's not actual lava, and he gets mad. Then he takes a long time thinking about what I told him, and he comes to the conclusion that I'm delusional and incorrect, and he tries to beat me up, to which I promptly defeat him, and I await the true lava hot springs I was talking about. Beautiful. The robed dog is where I really needed my physical resistance, because there was no way I was going to hit him without getting hit back. And that's exactly what I did. I hit him, and then I got hit back. Now that the capital is destroyed, I can get the final upgraded version of the Erd Tree Talisman, and it changes literally nothing. But why does Gideon think this Wish.com attack is going to do anything? Fucking bozo. I showed no fear, no worries, no nudes to Horaloo because he can't do anything against me. He hits me maybe like once or twice, maybe a little bit more, but that doesn't matter because I hit him like once or twice, maybe a little bit more. I'm not too sure honestly because like I said, I can't count, but now he's dead. And Radagon looks like he might as well be dead because he has a giant hole in his side on account of the pounding I am giving him. Every time he tried to swing his hammer, I swung my hammer harder, and we all know that I am the best swinger around. You can find me on any corner of the street, anywhere in the world. I'll be there, trust me. But eventually we beat Radagon, and Elden Beast is just as easy because I had healing going into the fight, and everyone knows that as long as you have at least 2 healing flasks, Elden Beast stands no chance. Both healing flasks are reserved solely for Elden Stars because I will never run away from them. And instead, I will call the attack stupid and broken, kind of like my brain, but I had enough time to attack him after basically every single one of his attacks, so that was pretty peachy. But wait, that's not the end. There's still one more thing we have to do. And now that I've beaten Elden Beast, I can finally go back to challenge Mohg. But remember, when I talked to the crab guy and said I had a plan, well, my plan was to buy 687 pieces of boiled crab, and it turns out it worked because I actually beat Mohg. But then the video file got corrupted, so I guess I didn't beat Mohg. So yeah, anyways,